Hey everybody, this is Karak from ACG, and today I'm bleached, bummed, and painted a fine blue hue as I bring to you the color-coordinated review of Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Mirror's Edge Catalyst tells a tale of a futuristic city designer that said, you know what, screw walking around, that's for chumps. Let's build the world's most dangerous to traverse city and color it like an American flag as seen from space. Nah, all runner vision kidding aside, this is the futuristic city known as Glass, and you play Faith, the cool character of the first title, who has returned to star in this one, which is, well, it's also the first title, only it's not because it's a remake of a game that, quite literally, feels like it came out just a couple months ago. As Faith, you're fresh out of juvie and meet up with some old pals, take the tried and true path of exposition and storytelling via sprinting at full speed while being told bedtime stories about what's going on in the world, and then you chop, slap, kick, spin, break, punch, and push your way through a series of major stories broken up by about 100,000 delivery missions. So gather together, sit down boys and girls, and let's see if Mirror's Edge Catalyst is the remake we've all been waiting for but had no clue we were doing so, or if it's nothing more than a studio out of ideas so they went back and stole the one that they just had. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Mirror's Edge Catalyst, the return of WTF architecture, the entire game based around leaps of faith, and that moment you realize you're a serial killer who specializes in pushing security guards to their death. As always, graphics are up first. At 720p on the Xbox One and 900p on the PS4 and pretty much anything P on the PC if you can run it, Mirror's Edge is really a bit of a mixed bag. Games that have desired to extol a feeling of emotional dystopia and a futuristic worldview with a high technology underpinning have always failed utterly compared to what I think is the original, which is Mirror's Edge. I really think it just nailed it, and it's that excellent use of texturing and clean lines that really sets it apart. All jokes aside about painters subconsciously loving America's colors, the color use and bold splashes both aid navigation and also break up what could quickly become monotonous to the eye if they didn't do so. And once again, texture work is highly detailed, and whether it's the console version or the PC, the use of rich, clean texture work next to sharp, futuristic design lends a feeling to this world that isn't really in anything else. The real issue here is that at times it does look a little bit blurry, even on the PC, though you can edit that out with an INI file change, which is nice. Now, when it comes to characters animation and enemies, the game's rather stylish. You know, Faith moves with that quickness, shattering and instantly repairing shins that you expect of these kind of characters. At every turn, each jump, no matter how many times you do it, is this harrowing moment, and I love that. Later on, as you begin to unlock special moves like rolling with the drop and whipping enemies while in an ass slide, it's hard not to be a little bit impressed. And the enemies too have bold, unique looks, and though some of the officers look a little bit like high school custodians in their odd jumpsuits, it's this level of highbrow design that to me really harkens back to, let's say, Logan's Run, and fits that art all together as one. Now, to be brutally honest, the move to open world has punched this thing down a couple notches when it comes to architecture. The original game was a good deal more linear, but that allowed for this cultivation of particular looks and moments that could be counted on and utilized to bring the player to earth, and nothing ever felt as slick as those original levels in the first game. I guess I'd just say that basically the level design is really this mixture of pure bliss from an architectural standpoint and sometimes from a game standpoint obnoxiously gamey, to the point that the entire world looks either like no one lives anywhere or works anywhere, or those that do live under the gantry ladders beneath a football stadium lighting system. Hell, even most ways to get into a bedroom are hilariously Mario-like and lack any feeling of world building or realism. Flights of stairs and multiple million-dollar locations sort of lead nowhere. And it's that dearth of connective world building that really makes me assume that in the future they expect even businessmen to parkour their way to their sandwich in refrigerator 111 on floor 35. It's so weird really, because in a game like this, if you're gonna go open world, obviously one of the narrative reasons would be to be able to solidify the worldview. But that takes time and it takes a presence of mind to offer gameplay that is tempered by believability. But here it feels like someone just said screw it, and a good reason for the game being made in the first place with open world seems to have not panned out. It's got a hell of a draw distance and people run around and look really cool when they're doing it, but frankly, it looks like a very dangerous, somewhat boring place to live. Sound, music, and voice.
Almost killed you. Sorry. Come in. So your Faith, what do you want?
Could you tell me what this is? What's on it?
Sure. Foreign.
Yeah, I found it.
Not a
wrong.
question.
Of course, sound is up first. The original Mirror's Edge, no slouch. It used a bevy of various effects to simulate that moment Neo and Trinity are running across rooftops in the Matrix. It was just wonderfully done stuff, and here is no exception, with a number of special effects including sound occlusion, refraction, reflection, playing havoc sometimes with your senses as you try to locate just where an enemy is on the rooftop. Also, there's always so many different subtle uses of environmental layering as you traverse that remind you that though you may appear like you're on solid ground and in total control, you're just one step away from being a faith cake. Good sound, weapons, everything sounds really good here. And of course, what's up next? Well, it's music. I love this. It's a bit of mosh rubbed off on the softer layering that Daft Punk seemed to nail so well in that one movie that was right after Tron, but no one wants to admit existed. It's a subtle blend of ambient trance and some more beat-tastic moments. I mean, come on, it's not award-winning in any way, but it does a good job of blending into that weird artificial familiarity that I think Mirror's Edge tries to reflect so well. It's there, it's good, it has some style and feeling, but it's a bit subdued. And of course, that brings us to my favorite, voice. You know, first let's get this out of the way. I think the voice actors did excellent regardless of the spot that they held in the story. From the try-hard hoodie-wearing punk Icarus who took your spot while you were in juvie, to Faith herself that sometimes has some fairly good material to work with in the title. When asked to deliver what they need to deliver, I think they did a pretty good job emotionally. But the game's utter reliance on generic character types absolutely sucks. There's this ticking and twitching hilarious because they don't deal well with people, nudge nudge kind of nerd that's thrown at you. There's the over-emotional lead that sends you out to do jobs and then loses their shit when you actually do what you're supposed to. Even the random characters inhabiting the mostly Spartan wasteland of Clorox bleach and colored Legos you end up experiencing, it's just really iffy. Luckily, the excellent voice work means that when the game lacks its meaningful, interesting characters, which is pretty much the entire damn time, at least it turns around and does the most with that Shutterstock kind of version of voice work. And of course, that brings us to gameplay. I think where Mirror's Edge succeeded was taking parkour so many other game developers really felt was essentially locked into third-person view and made it infinitely playable in first-person. Then, to alleviate the game being a shooter, they explained away the lack of desire to use guns, for the most part, threw the world into a future that fit the game design's unique requirements, and boom, Mirror's Edge, your fantastic futuristic styling fancy running simulator was born. And indeed, Catalyst does much of the same thing, offering far more world building around Faith than the prior titles ever did, as well as fleshing out a bit of those around you, and tries to take much of that exploratory feel and move it into an open world environment and have you actually do it. First, let's discuss control. It's rock solid. Now, sure, you're going to fall to your death time and time again due to trying to push yourself just a bit harder, but that's half the magic, really. And you will need to hone those skills as the world is no longer a level-by-level structure, but one that's pretty open and has various ways to get any one place. However, in Catalyst, open world is almost mockingly cut and paste. Think if everyone had cheat mode on in GTA Lite and there was a game of don't touch the ground because it's lava. Now you basically go around, collect missions, run around the rooftops, completing the story mode mission itself as well, take on a variety of side missions, perform races both in single player and a bit of that asynchronous multiplayer, which is actually just another name for, yeah, we don't have multiplayer, and other open world fare. The problem is, it's all absolutely boring filler, completely. While many of the systems like combat have been switched up in Mirror's Edge, it really is that move to open world mixed with the sometimes weird at odds desire to tell a more in-depth story that we see with Catalyst and we see bring so many problems. Because, I mean, the main problem is whenever one of those side missions gets in the way, it's not only not telling a story, it's making the story that you were telling completely boring. And it's so odd because while the main world may lack some of the perfection juice that's squeezed all over the original and its cultured and defined mission structure, Catalyst starts out and it seems like it's going to absolutely knock it out of the park. The initial pacing and overt openness that's offered to you from the onset is actually fantastic. It's that feeling of standing on the edge of the world and looking off. Of course, if the world is made of handles and awesome footmarks on the walls to tell you where to go. But the problem actually starts almost right away. You see, you're going to find yourself at times looking at a location, wondering why you can't make a jump or running from place to place trying to find that one pipe that's red due to runner vision, patent pending, so that you can get across some buildings and to a lady who's either waiting to give you an item or contemplating ending it all, obviously. And once you do that for the 10th time, you realize that you're not further in the story and you're also, well, repeating this cut and paste kind of stuff in a very, very small area compared to a lot of other games. Quicker rather than later, you're going to take an unregistered item from one electronic mailbox to one that is quite possibly less than 100 feet away. A strong wind and a bored parrot has the same chance of delivering some of the random items as you do. And that kind of stuff pretty much continues throughout the title, and no matter which way you take it, it's obsolescent gameplay design choice. In many ways, it's sort of a backcountry drive along a slightly different road, where you get to actually look around and pay a bit more attention than you did the first time. And it's that open world aspect that allows you to sit and take a look, and that's when Catalyst is at its weakest. And it's really at its strongest when it's just mimicking the first title's exact gameplay beats. And of course, lastly, that brings us to fun factor. As I said before, when the game is pushing you forward and you're on your story mission or tensely running away from something, it's absolutely as fun as the original, which means some are going to like this and some will find it a boredom factory in Asian girl form. It's got the tried and true gameplay in there and more of it because it's not always tied to level design, which is very, very cool. For some, that's going to be enough for an instant purchase. For others, they're probably going to want a little bit more meat going on here. So I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. For me, this is absolutely a wait for a sale. The move to open world didn't really remove the excellent bits when you're playing the story missions, but it didn't add long-lasting enjoyment for me either. Hey, you may love it and want to buy it right now, and that's totally respectable, but the reasons for this game and for the creation is to open world it. And once you basically do that and you enter in and you find out that basically you're taking mail from your mailbox and running it to your neighbors 90 feet away, it can be a little bit bothersome when that's how they reflect open world and better story. So as always, if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, check out a Patreon, check out the Twitter, check out our Reddit. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. Peace out and enjoy your week.